Well, we want to take a look now at factoring a quadratic trinomial of the form x squared plus bx plus c. So we've already learned how to multiply two binomials using the distributive property or the FOIL method. So now we want to take a look at how we factor a trinomial and actually put it into two binomials. Okay, so here's a couple of things that I want you to understand, that when we factor these trinomials, that we will get two binomials. So saying that, just bear with me for a minute, that we want to make sure that if we're going to get two binomials, let's just go ahead and put two parentheses down. But there are some things, that rules that I think that'll be very simple, helpful. They are helpful for me. Hopefully they're helpful for you. That if I look at my middle term, and that's plus 9x, that's actually my b term. So let me do this so you can be clear completely. This was my x squared. This is my bx, and this is my c term. So when I look at my b term, I'll notice here that this is positive and my c term is also positive. So if that's the case, if I'm looking at that, and if I'm seeing that as a student, if I'm seeing that as anyone that's literally working this problem, I can determine that when c is positive, its factors have the same sign. So they're going to be either both negative or both positive. How do we know that? Because we're going to multiply to get c. And if we multiply, we know that factors with the same sign will always give us a positive. Either negative times a negative or positive times a positive. But when we look and see b is positive, then both factors are positive. So we see that b plus 9 is positive. So we can just go right ahead and put a positive sign in the middle of our brackets. Something else we noticed. We also noticed that we are looking at x squared. So our first terms inside of our literal two binomials will be x, because x times x is x squared. Now we're looking at 18. Now the way this works, everyone, is we have to see what are the factors of 18 that will add up and give us 9. So let's take a look at the factors of 18. We have 1 and 18, but 1 plus 18 is equal to 19. Then we have 2 and 9, but then again 2 plus 9 equals 11. Now we're doing this now, but eventually we can mentally do this in our head and then expedite the problem. So the next factor will be 3 and 6, and if you take 3 plus 6, it indeed equals 9. So because both of these are positive, it don't matter how you put. So we can just put, and I put the 9 in there inadvertently. So let's go ahead and take it out, and we're looking at 3 and 6. So of course now we have determined that x plus 3 times x plus 6 will equal our trinomial. But to make sure, let's check. So we'll do so using FOIL. So let's go with check at the bottom here, and we can do so using FOIL. X plus 3 times x plus 6, and x times x is going to give us x squared. X times 6 is going to be plus 6x. 3 times x is plus 3x, and of course 3 times 6 is plus 18. And as we notice, we have like terms in the middle, so let's go ahead and add our like terms. 6 plus 3 is going to be plus 9x plus 18, and it does indeed check to our original statement. Okay, So we just want to make sure that we understand the little pointers that I gave you there in the middle, and we should easily understand what's going on. Okay, so let's take a look at another one, and this time instead of using two positive, let's use one that gives us a negative. So let's take problem number 2. Okay, and then with this one, let's factor x squared minus 8x plus 15. Okay, so we'll go through the same steps. We know that we're factoring a trinomial, so we're going to factor into two binomials. Now, back up here, so we have our two parentheses, but let's go back to this rule that we talked about earlier. We want to look at the signs, and if we look at these particular signs, we see that C is positive. So if C is positive, we will have the same sign. But we have to look at B and determine what that sign is. And of course, B is negative. So we will have both signs inside being negative. Why is that? Well, a negative times a negative gives us a positive. But when we add two negatives, we always get a negative. So we came to that conclusion. Really simple there, see? I mean, there's nothing whatsoever devastating about this if we just keep in mind these rules of integers. So now we see that our first two terms, x times x, is give us x squared. So our first two terms inside of our binomial will be x and x. And now we need to look at what are the factors of 15 that will add together and give us 8. Okay, so let's take a look at 15. We know, and we said we want to do it mentally, but one more time we'll do it. We have 1 and 15, but if you add 1 and 15, you're going to get 16, and we can say these are negative, and we'll get a negative 16. And if we look at the next factor, which 2, it will be negative 3 and negative 5, and if you add negative 3 and negative 5, you will indeed get a negative 8. Okay, so we say that these are our factors. It does not matter where you put them. We can use negative 3 and negative 5 here. Okay, so it seems as if it's factored. Only thing we need to do now is go back in and check. Okay, so check again. We will use 4. So we have x minus 3 times x minus 5. So of course x times x is going to give us x squared, and x times a negative 5 is going to give us a negative 5x. Negative 3 times x will give us a negative 3x, and a negative 3 times a negative 5 will give us a positive 15. We go in and combine our like terms, and we will have x squared minus 8x plus 15. Okay, so far nothing at all that's painful when it comes to what we're actually doing. So again, we looked at one where C was positive, B was positive, so we know we have two positive, and we looked at one where C was positive and B was negative, and we'll have two negatives. Okay, now we need to think about, what about when C is negative and B is negative? Okay, so let's go right ahead. Hopefully we can squeeze this in on our YouTube time slot. So let's take a look when both C and B is negative. So let's take a look at x squared minus 3x minus 18. Now again, we'll put our parentheses here because we know factoring this trinomial is going to give us literally 2. Now two binomials. Now, think about this with me. When you multiply, if C is negative, so the only way you're going to get a negative when you multiply is one positive and one is negative. Okay? So we have one is positive, one is negative. But we won't know until we literally look at the factors to determine, and we would want to say that when C is negative, its factors have opposite signs, and the sign of B will tell which factor is positive and which will negative. So if B is negative, then the greater sign, the greater absolute value of the factors is negative. But if B is positive, the greater absolute value is positive. Okay, so we see that B is negative. So when we break down these factors of 18, the greatest absolute value will have to be negative. So again, we get the same concept with X. We'll have our first terms in the binomial of X, and let's take a look at 18, and we will write these down here so we can see. So our factors of 18 are 1 and 18. Okay, but think about this now. You have to be really careful here with this one. When we look at 1 and 18, we have to figure out, well, we said the largest, so we would have the sum of 1, right, and that's going to be minus 18, and 1 minus 18 will give you a negative 17, so that's not going to be correct. So what are the other factors? Let's take 2 and a negative 9, because again we're looking for the middle term to be negative, so the greater term have to be negative. So 1, 2, and that will give us a negative 18, but when we add 1 minus 9, we will get, I'm sorry, I said 1, I mean 2. 2 minus 9, and we'll get negative 7. Okay, still that's not the correct answer. So let's take a look at our third set, which is 3 and a negative 6. And when we add, we will have 3 minus 6, and that will indeed give us a negative 3. So we see that our correct factors are 3, negative 6, and we just follow the pattern. 6 goes here, and 3 goes here. So now all we need to do to make sure that we are correct is check. Okay, so let's check over here, give us more room. Okay, so again, this is going to be our final. Well, we'll look at one more, I think, but anyway, let's go ahead and check. And checking, we're going to have x plus 3 times x minus 6, and that's x times x will give us x to the second power, and x times a negative 6 will give us minus 6x. 3 times x will give us plus 3x, and of course a positive times a negative will give us a negative, and 3 times 6 will give us 18. So all we need to do now is go ahead and combine our like terms, and we do so by x squared and 3 positive 3 negative 6 is going to give us negative 3 minus 3x minus 18, and again we come back to our original problem. So again, same concept, same thing. We'll do one more briefly. We won't check it, but we'll just take a look at when what factors do we use when we have a positive b and a negative. Okay, so we'll take a look at the problem. X squared plus 2x minus 15. Okay, let's go ahead and throw our parentheses in, and we know one's going to be positive, one's going to be minus. We also know that x will be our inner term, our first terms on our binomial, And now we'll take a look at what are the factors of 15 that will add together. And remember that the larger term must be positive. So we'll take a look at, well, 1 and 15, a negative 1 and a positive 15 will give us 14. But then again, we can also look at a negative 3 and a positive 5, and those factors add together will indeed give me 2x. So let's go ahead and put a negative 5 and a positive 3, and then just go ahead and check to make sure that we're correct. So I'll go ahead and change the color here. I hope these are not that complicated for you. So let's go ahead and check. But again, if you pay attention closely to the sign of C, to your C and your B, you'll know exactly how to utilize your rules of integers and really master this concept. Okay, so to check it, we will have x plus 5 times x minus 3, and we will get x squared, and that's going to be minus 3x and plus 5x minus 15, and now we just combine our like terms and we will have x squared plus 2x minus 15, and that takes us back to our original problem. Okay, I hope this benefits you looking at factoring trinomials in the form of x squared plus bx plus c.